Good evening. This is The Chase, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program. I'm Eben Mabunda. Well, we are continuing with our election series, and this is ZTN Prime broadcasting to you from our ZTN studios in Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. Now, this program is brought to you by ZTN Prime in partnership with the Election Resource Center, the ERC. Now, in less than 2 weeks, 6.6 million Zimbabwean voters will converge across 12,000 polling stations to exercise their democratic right to elect their preferred candidates in councils, parliament, as well as into presidency. A presidential candidate needs at least 50% plus one of the vote to be declared the winner. Otherwise, there will be a runoff election between the top two candidates 6 weeks later, and that will be on the 2nd of October. The role of the media during elections is to safeguard the health of a democracy. The media is mandated to play a responsible role in reporting on the election, give a fair coverage to the political contestants, and not encourage violence or engage in hate speech in adherence to the tenets of the Electoral Act. Here on The Chase, as usual, we look into what political parties and candidates are offering, and we dissect all pertinent issues with regards this very election. Today, we will be joined by different media houses and political parties on the set to discuss the subject: election coverage. Are journalists getting it right? Join me and my guest tonight on The Chase. Welcome back. You are watching The Chase, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program. I'm Eben Mabunda. This, of course, is ZTN Prime broadcasting to you from our ZTN studios in Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. And this program is brought to you in partnership with the Election Resource Center. In the studio today to discuss election coverage, are journalists getting it right? I'm joined by Farai Marapire, the ZANU-PF Acting Director for Information. We are also joined by Robson Shumba Mandu from the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation, ZBC, Kolwani Nyati from Alpha Media Holdings, the AMH, Ranga Mataire, the Group Political Editor for Zim Papers. We're expecting to be joined by Jacob Mafume, who is representing the Triple C. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome to The Chase.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Now, here at ZTN Prime, our values are dignity, dialogue, as well as debate. All views expressed on The Chase are those of our guests and do not reflect the views of Zim Papers 1980 Limited, the Election Resource Center, or those of ZTN Prime. And of course, to our viewers, do follow the conversation via our social media handles at Zim Papers TV Network, as well as at ZTN Prime. Your views are important to us. Now, to get the ball rolling, or should I say to get to the chase, we'll start, of course, with the most recent developments in this particular election. On Tuesday, the MDC President Douglas Monzora withdrew from the presidential race, citing what he termed irregularities by the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. I'll start with you, Farai. What is your view on that particular stance and on that declaration that he has made to say there are particular irregularities and mismanagement by the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission?
Well, it is very unfortunate that we still have the dagger of accountability hanging over the heads of most of our politicians. Sometimes being a responsible politician is just coming to terms with your failures and your shortcomings and admitting them when they've happened. Well, I'm not here to defend ZEC or to castigate them, but representing my party, we have had no problems with ZEC. We've had no problems with how ZEC has been operating. ZEC has supported some of the parties which are not ZANU-PF in some of these court cases, and we believe that is their mandate. As a body, that is what they are designed to do, to fulfill their mandate. But for someone who has failed in his particular matters on an organizational basis, to then try and blame other organizations, that's just not correct. I think Mr. Monzora should have the self-respect enough to just come clean, accept his own shortcomings, and not blame shift and try to point fingers at other individuals and corporations.
Now, of course, the subject here is that of media coverage. What is your assessment with regards to the coverage of the media of all political parties in the build-up to this very election? Again, Farai.
I'm very respectful of the fourth estate, especially with regards to these elections. We've been inviting all media, state, private, international, to come to all our engagements and all our rallies. And they have been coming. And whenever we are invited for an interview, we've always made ourselves available. We've even had to circumvent some of our internal programming so that we come and attend. So we are really, we really do not have any complaint against the media at present. It has been very well from the private and the public media houses. So with the media, we've got a very, very good working rapport in these elections. And we'd like to commend them for that, and I hope it will continue that trajectory.
Now, the opposition alleges that the ruling party has somewhat a direct influence and a hand in the editorial policies of all public media. Do you have a hand in their editorial policy by any chance?
Not only is that absurd and false, but it is quite malicious and ill-begotten. As the ruling party, we do not have any desk that tries any editorial policies. The state media, as they call it, is entirely independent to drive its own information agenda to the nation, which is why we believe they are inviting all political parties. Some of us are attending every call because if we can be on call with the media 24 hours a day, we would love that because we need to communicate the successes of ZANU-PF under President Mnangagwa. So this state media has been inviting us. The private media has been inviting us. We are very happy with all these invites, and we are not dictating to anyone or directing them how to operate and who to operate with. That is quite patently false.
Now, Kolwani, he says that there is somewhat a good rapport with the media. What are your sentiments regarding what he just said?
Thank you. I think to an extent I will agree with him, in particular this election. I would say we've had issues before the election, but I think we've not had an incident where journalists are barred from covering their activities, or journalists that have been harassed so far. So far, yeah, I think it's different from previous elections. It's different from the by-elections, the March 26 by-elections last year, where we had incidents of journalists that were beaten up during where they were going to attend a rally, and where there were cases of journalists that were barred from attending rallies.
Right. Now, to sort of open up now to the media practitioners, the rest of the media practitioners here in this conversation, specific to the Electoral Act, which states that media coverage should be allocated to all during a particular election period. I will move to you, Robson. The CCC have accused you of denying them equal and fair coverage during this very election. What is perhaps your comment with regards to that?
Thank you, Eben. As the national broadcaster, we are guided by the laws. That's our Bibles. And the laws that come to the fore are the Electoral Act, like you rightly said. There's the Broadcasting Authority, there's the Broadcasting Services Act. Those provisions of those laws is what guides the national broadcaster. What gives us the professional way of providing coverage? There are critical and very precise pillars of offering coverage to political parties. The first pillar is the national broadcaster is required to offer free airtime to all approved political parties who will have thrown their submissions into the race. And they have a mandate to come and take that offer of free airtime. There is the second pillar where political parties can add on to their free airtime and come to the national broadcaster to pay. This one is required at what are called reduced rates, the national broadcaster is not supposed to make a profit from that commercial airtime. In this instance, specifically for 2023, the national broadcaster has said we are offering for whoever political player who wants to come in and pay for airtime, they are getting it at 70% of our commercial rate. The free airtime is accorded, I will start with the presidential race. For all presidential candidates, they are given, if we say 30 minutes, every presidential candidate will get 30 minutes on both radio and television. For the political players, I want to emphasize a serious point that there is nothing called equal airtime. There is what is called equitable airtime. Equitable airtime. How have you come in to participate in this election? I'll tell you, there's a political party that he has taken all the three categories of election in full. A presidential cabinet candidate, they've submitted papers. For the 210 candidates for National Assembly, submitted papers. For the 1,970 local government authority seats, they've submitted papers. They'll certainly get the lion's share of the airtime. And we go down equitably as for your participation.
We've got to take a quick break and we'll continue with some of the details. The Chase will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Every morning, the smart start it deserves with your favorite homegrown breakfast cereal. Nestle Ceravita. Fortified with Grain Smart, a smart combination of irons, vitamins and minerals. Your family gets all the energy they need to make the most of every day. That's why every morning deserves a smart start. Nestle Ceravita. Highly nutritious, simply delicious.
Following the story.
What is happening on Zimbabwe's roads? How did we get here? Through red robots, basically break every road rule under the sun.
So inini ndakadhakwa nembanje dzangu ndikaenda kuchipatara ndaunorapwa kana handibatsiri asi ndikazvishaya tega aiwa.
Deeper analysis.
So, are you ready and prepared if violence rears up?
Jacob Mafume's party has taken hostage of them.
The videos are there. Do not be drawn into the debate of discussing issues that are subjective. He said when he grows up, he would like to be like me.
Oh. Just to put you in there.
Good evening and welcome to the program.
Just to break the ice, what is ZNF's mandate?
To promote media freedom.
And money matters.
Coming up, Tanganda Limited is set to bring online a macadamia processing plant.
Now, Zimbabwe Stock Exchange listed company Seedco Limited has resolved to suspend indefinitely its proposal.
Every week on ZTN Prime.
Welcome back to The Chase, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program. I'm Eben Mabunda. Of course, we are continuing with our election series. Now, before the break, the question that had been relayed to Robson Shumba Mandu was that the CCC have accused state broadcaster ZBC of denying them equal and fair coverage during this very election. Question is, what is your comment on this? And you had just given us some highlights into that. Please take it away.
I unpacked the categories of airtime that the national broadcaster offers on our platforms, the radio platforms, the television platforms in all our languages. And I emphasized the issue of equity, not equal, on the basis of a political player's participation in the election. And I think I did that. I don't want to waste airtime by going back to that. But here is my take, where the national broadcaster can never be responsible for offering airtime that does not get taken up by the political players. It is also their honors, their willingness to come to the national broadcaster to pay if they want to add. And here is the specific elections coverage. But like I said, we are only guided by the laws. One, the Electoral Act and the Broadcasting Services Act. So we are there for all the political players. But let me also hasten to say, there's a world of difference between specific elections coverage and news coverage, which is part of the national broadcaster's mandate. Even after the elections, we shall continue to produce news products on radio, television, and digital platforms. For the specific elections, there is airtime for all political players for free, for commercial, at reduced rates of 70% of the obtaining rate card. And I think that's where we are. I want to emphasize that point to say the national broadcaster is ready. We have even gone further for the convenience of our political players to say we create recording facilities here in Harare at our headquarters at Pocket Seal. Right. Can I just finish on that? At our headquarters at Pocket Seal, at Mbare Broadcasting Center, Gweru Central Radio, at Montrose Broadcasting Center in Bulawayo.
We are joined on set, of course, by Jacob Mafume representing the CCC. What is your response to what Robson Mandu has just said?
I don't know if he's living in Zimbabwe or he's talking about what is happening here. I myself am the mayor of Harare. I was cut off mid-speech giving a state of the city of address, and I never appeared again at ZBC. Fast forward to the elections. Even the equitable, we have 1,900 candidates in this election at council level, 210 MPs at MP level, and senators. We've got a full bouquet and provincial, then women's proportional representation, including a leading presidential candidate. We have not seen ourselves at the equitable magnitude he's talking about. We have, our rally has never been covered for 30 minutes. Just recently we saw some snippets coming in. We pay, and for your own information, the program that was cut off, I had paid, or the council had paid, and we were cut off and we never got back our deposit, and the people never appeared at Town House again, let alone our political party. We have not heard anything.
Right. Robson, what's your response to what he just said?
I want to first respond on the basis of the program that he talks about when he allegedly says he was cut. We have our processes for accepting and for taking on programming on both radio and television. If processes are not followed, we will cut the programs without fear or favor. So, and it's not
Which
election
process
programming.
was not followed in this
it's
particular
not
case?
election programming. I don't want to focus on it because it's not election programming.
You
That's
had brought
number
it
one.
up.
But it's
Number two.
What about the election
Number
programming?
two,
When
we
you covered
are
a rally?
Let's let him finish.
Do I have a platform or he
Proceed.
wants to carry on?
No, we want to ask her because you can't
Gentlemen,
preach to
our
us.
values are dignity, debate, and dialogue. Robson, you will have your chance to respond.
I said, there is no one we are leaving for this coverage. We are offering free coverage. We are offering commercial coverage for every political player.
Name
It's
one
their
rally that
honors.
has been covered for Triple C. One rally.
May
I
you
don't
respond
want to
to
ask
that?
questions. I don't want to get questions from him.
Yeah, but
We have a
one
moderator.
from the question that he's asking, is that what is being reflected on the state broadcaster?
One rally.
If we switch on to ZBC now, are
One
we going
rally.
to see coverage of the rallies for the Triple C?
I don't even want to mention one rally. We have covered rallies for every political party,
including the Triple C.
They are part of the players in this election.
Right. Now, same goes for you, Rangamataire, for the Zim Papers Group, which has several subsidiaries just like the ZBC. You have been accused of being partisan and propping up the ruling party. How do you respond to that?
I want first to clarify one thing before I respond to your question. Unlike ZBC, we are not really a state media house. We are a publicly listed media house. So we're a public media, although the government is the major shareholder. So we need to clarify on that. But as the public media, which is a integrated media organization with print platforms, newspapers, television, and radio platforms, we are mandated to ensure that we cover all political parties. We are mandated to ensure that we are guided and mandated by national interest in our coverage. I want to come to your question and say, I tend to agree with Kulwane that as a media organization, or as the media in general, I think to a large extent we have done well in giving coverage to all political parties. We have done well in giving coverage for campaigns, event-based. Just to give you an example, because my brother Mafume is here, yes. I would need to go back to just to clarify to you in terms of statistics. So far, ZTN, which is our television station, of the 8 debates on the chess since June, CCC as a party has appeared 4 times. The Honorable Jacob Mafume himself has represented CCC on July 13, on July 6th, and on the 27th. He also appeared on August 3. So judging just by ZTN, I think we've done fairly well in trying to give a fair coverage to all political parties. But there is more that we can do as the media. And there are 2 aspects that I think as the media we can do, and I think there's still time for us to do that. We need to dedicate ourselves to research and be able to give credible information to voters. If we dedicate ourselves...
we will get into those particular details as we make progress, as that is part of the conversation.
I thought you were going to cover the print media.
Jacob, the question, I'll give you your opportunity to respond to just what he said now before I move on to Kulwane. Question is, what's your response to what he just said?
Well, I will take the point on the debates on the chess. I think that we have appeared in various forms and shapes, myself or other people representing Triple C, in terms of this particular debate, which we are currently on, which seems to be an exception to the rule. The rule is that there is a blackout. Our presidential candidate has not even appeared on the front page of any of the papers under his stable. We have not appeared a speech that is longer than 20 minutes on any of the various subsidiary radio stations. So that is problematic.
Right. With regards the front page appearance, how do you respond to that?
It's unfortunate, my brother, you wouldn't understand because he's not a journalist. Not everything that is said by political parties deserves to be on the front page. There are so many factors that we consider in order to put a story
but others
on the front
every
page.
Day.
No.
They have mere existence.
I think in my preamble, I mentioned that we are mandated by national interest. Just as an example, if, for example, someone says that if I get into power, the moment I get into power, I will pick a phone and call Biden, and the sanctions will be gone. Surely, that has nothing to do with national interest, because it shows that someone has no idea or is less sophisticated to understand
just a
how
montage.
sanctions came into being.
Let's say there are 11
no,
nominated
let me just finish.
Gentlemen,
So
you
there
had
are
your
so
chance,
many
Jacob.
variables that are considered. I think my brother here would agree that there are so many variables that are considered for you to put a story on the front page. However, I think we've managed well. He is crying about the front page, but on any other pages, I think we've done well. I just wanted to respond.
Various areas of consideration.
Sorry, I just wanted to
we
respond.
move on to Kolwane. Gentlemen, let's proceed. On the other hand, the private media's relationship with the government has not been rosy and has been accused, of course, of propping up the opposition. How do you respond to those allegations that perhaps private media is somewhat in support of the opposition?
I wouldn't say it's the government per se. It's certain individuals within government that because of their biases, they think the private media doesn't serve their interests. I can assure you that perhaps even my colleague from ZANU-PF will agree that the private media, he actually mentioned it, that the private media has been covering them very fairly. And there's not been that, no one has come to us to say you are biased or you didn't cover our events in an objective manner. So I will strongly disagree that the private media is pushing an opposition agenda.
Farai, your response to that?
By and large, the print media has been very objective. We have to give respect where it is due. Of course, there are certain...
The major beneficiary is that objective when you are in the front page every day. Honestly.
I'm speaking of public, private, all media, my brother. Listen carefully. Anyway, yeah.
Let's give him a chance.
So,
with bemusement.
So when we look at this, by and large, the media has been trying to give fair reportage, fair attendance to our rallies. We give them all this due respect, and we wish to encourage them to continue on that path of, like I said earlier, positivity and nation building as regards to allowing themselves to become spreaders of toxicity and divisionism amongst us as a people. So I'd just like to say, so far, by and large, with even the private media, our interactions have been positive.
Right. Moving on to another subject where it is that politicians are invited to particular platforms, be it TV, or to respond to questions by the media. And there have been reports of no-shows or some form of sabotage by one political party against a particular media house or the other. Now, the question is this, is this true? Are we seeing this reflected across our media or not? I'll start with you, Kolwane.
As I mentioned earlier, we have problems with a few individuals. I think it's their choice. If they make an opinion that they won't talk to certain newspapers, it's not our problem. We will talk to those that are willing to talk to us. It's not I wouldn't say it's a widespread problem for the private media.
Ranga.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Kolwane. However, I think over the years we have faced a challenge in terms of engaging other political parties. Just like today, I almost thought that my brother would not make it. We have had a challenge where our reporters, if they want to reach out to other political parties, they are not forthcoming. But when this is discussed outside, it would appear like we are not giving fair coverage. But in earnest, I think we have had challenges on that, where you have other players not willing to readily engage.
Which players would this be?
Oh, it's previously the MDC Alliance and now the CCC. I have a record of my conversation with the spokesperson of the CCC. It's unfortunate my sister is not here, Fadzai Maher. I would have openly told her on the dates that I tried to engage her so that we would have a conversation. She has not been willing. You are referred to the deputy Ostalos, and when you engage Ostalos, he refers you now to Mr. Mafume. It appears like Mr. Mafume is almost like a punch bag who is thrown almost at the deep end all the time. But we would need to engage them.
These are shallow ends, my brother.
How do you respond?
No. Look, we are there. Our events are publicized. Our spokespersons are very interactive. We invite people to our events. We have invited to our rallies. In fact, our president is a very good speaker, very eloquent. It's a carnival atmosphere every time we have an event, and his message is always crystal clear about what and where the nation is going. But sadly, my colleague here...
Perhaps just as follow-up, have you availed perhaps the schedules of some of
yes,
your
all the
rallies
schedules,
to
the
the
schedules
public as well as
have been
the
to
media?
the press.
Where can we find them?
They will. This world is an interactive world. Our departments can send it, but our Facebook, Twitter page is very clear. Like now, the president, the launch.
Have you seen? Have you had access?
Okay,
to,
let me say,
the schedule?
we are the only party
Ranga
that launched a manifesto.
Ranga,
Did it
you
appear
had,
on
Jacob?
ZTN, ZBC?
Can we
Our manifesto.
No, I will speak from a point of journalist.
The event.
Yeah, from a journalist perspective. I think prior to the event, we were not informed. We were not told. So we relied more on, like what you're saying, on social media platforms. But when you try to engage, we got a very flat response. When you try to engage about attending the event and so forth. Nevertheless, we still attended. Some of our reporters were there. We still attended. But I need to go back to what I talked about because it's related to what he said. No, just give me a chance, if you can.
Quickly.
On the need for research.
We will get into that particular aspect of the conversation when we come back from a break. Just a quick one. Was the manifesto covered on any of their platforms?
Yes, the private media covered it live. ZBC ignored it completely. Maybe some snippets there. And even they were reading it with the happiness. They did not have a manifesto of their own.
ZTN did cover. Robson. Gentlemen, let's continue. Gentlemen, our values are dignity, debate, and dialogue. Gentlemen, Robson, did you cover the manifesto of the Triple C, and how do you respond to the question that I asked to the rest of the gentlemen in this regard?
Firstly, I want to agree with my media brothers that sometimes politicians tend to cherry pick their preferences for the media houses they want them to cover. That is not our anyone's problem. We strive, we fight to from the dictates and provisions of the laws that I alluded to earlier on. We follow those because they are our Bible. Coming to your question of covering the clean activity of the Triple C, we did cover without invitation. But on the news coverage side of things, because we are mandated to cover that, we don't depend on the invite. We choose the activities of national interest that we want to cover. But like I said earlier on, there's a world of difference between news coverage and election coverage. Election coverage, we're guided by the laws. News coverage, it's our prerogative according to our editorial policies, according to the values of broadcasting. That's what guides us. That's what guides us.
How can it not be of national interest to cover the manifesto of a party that could possibly form the next government?
Now,
how is it not in the national interest?
Gentlemen, to take a breather. Time for us to take a breather. Gentlemen, we will continue with the conversation after the break. The Chase will be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You are watching The Chase, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program. And this is ZTN Prime broadcasting to you from our ZTN studios in Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. Now, of course, we are continuing with our election series, and we are asking the question of whether the media is actually doing its job in this, in the coverage of the 2023 election. And we have representatives from political parties ZANU-PF as well as the Triple C, and we also have players from the ZBC, Alpha Media Holdings, as well as the Zim Papers group. Now, to continue with our conversation, perhaps to move on to various aspects that are, of course, related to what we have been discussing here. The flow of information, of course, has increased thanks, of course, to advances in technology and, of course, the advent of social media. Now, with that, of course, there would be pitfalls that would include misinformation as well as disinformation as well in that particular bracket. And Zimbabwe has not been spared. Now, question is this: how does the media guard against being the main drivers of misinformation as well as disinformation in this particular regard? Kolwani.
I think it doesn't matter that we're in an election season. We maintain our objectivity, our balance. So in as much as there's a lot of information that is flying around, we still stick to those standards that we, to our editorial policies and those on how we put truth to the test in terms of when we get information, it could be videos that are circulating on social media, we still subject it to the usual standards that we verify the information and that we make sure that we mislead. We make sure that we are not quick to be the first by not verifying. And that's how the media is able to counter misinformation.
Robson, how are you guarding against misinformation as well as disinformation?
Firstly, in agreement with my brother Kolwani, the pillars of our media industry must reign supreme. In specific to broadcasting, we make sure that we don't put words into people's mouths. When we talk about my brother Mafumi, we get his voice in audio or in video form. And that's what we do. And that's what helps us best practice international standards in broadcasting. That's how we guard against these flying stories in the social media galleries. We are authorities in our own right, and I know, and whether people agree or they don't agree, some of the stories that start in the social media gallery, people wait for ZBC, people wait for Herald, people wait for Zim Papers, and my brother Kolwani from MH to verify the authenticity of those stories, because we get credible sources, we have the voices of the particular people whom we take as newsmakers, and that's what guides us, and that's what gives us the element of authenticity, accuracy, objectivity, and ethical practice.
Right. Ranga, how do you respond to that? What are you doing to guard against disinformation as well as misinformation?
No, thank you. I want to be a bit different from what my colleagues have said. As a newspaper, as a media organization, one of the first things that we did in this election, which has never been done by any media organization, is to set up what we call Zim Papers Election Desk, which is edited by the Chronicle editor, Mr. Lawson Mabena. The idea of setting up an election desk as an integrated media house is to ensure that information that comes out, election-related, is coordinated and fact-checked before it's published. So we have invested so much in fact-checking. Unlike our colleagues, we have never heard a story so far in this period which has been retracted. But without mentioning names, some of our colleagues have had their stories retracted. A case in reference point is the story of a man who was alleged to have been a beneficiary of a house from a politician, and then it later turned out that it wasn't true. I want to go back to an issue that you were preventing me from saying: research and historical background and give incredible information. One of the malaise or one of the failures as the media, because we also need to peer review ourselves. One of the things that I think we could invest more in is in research. Because if we're doing research, we'll be able to give our audiences information in reference to what the candidates are offering or promising today. A case in point is that in the last election, the CCC spokesperson, Fadzai Maher, is alleged to have plagiarized a whole manifesto. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. But let me finish, because this is publicly documented. It's documented. It's documented. But let me finish. Okay, let me not mention a name, but let me finish my example. A top official of an opposition party was alleged to have plagiarized a manifesto of. No, let me finish. Let me finish. She was an independent candidate then.
But she's not here.
Honorable, let me just finish. Unless you think what I'm going to say will be very damaging.
No, I don't think it's going to be very
okay, so let me finish.
But no, what I mean,
I've already agreed to what
she was an independent.
Yes.
She's not here.
Yes, but
so
let me finish. I'm talking from a perspective of journalists.
You would never allow me to talk about someone who is not here.
Oh yes, but let me give them.
And then you can respond.
Right.
No, but I can't respond. My
apologies.
I don't have the information
here without a presence.
So let me say anonymous. I will need to
let me anonymous.
We will have him continue and then you will respond. Gentlemen, we are coming to just after this.
It is.
Jacob, we are coming to just after this.
People who are not here.
Let's let him proceed.
It's not a person now.
You are intelligent enough to find another example.
Yes, that's the one that I want to use.
No, leave that one.
Yes, I've already left it. I want to use another one.
You want to use another one?
Yes.
But you can't speak about someone who is not there.
Let me say
we will take a break. We will be back just after this break.
Welcome to Chew On, the show that links people, food and culture whilst giving you a diverse culinary experience.
Pure ingredients, wholesome, vibrant and earthy dishes. When you get all the elements together, it all sings. That's what Zimbabwean food is all about. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chew On.
The world's most beautiful game, and we do that in depth. And today our topic is
It is a real puzzle how crystal meth has made its way into communities and continues to ravage the youth. This is where it all begins. Is enough focus being put on mental health?
Whether you are a kid or an old man, football gives you an equal opportunity to live the dream. This beautiful game lets us dream and live that dream in someone else's shoes. And dreams are what keeps us alive. Keep dreaming with the Kasolaga Premier Soccer League. Bora Redu, March to December, live on ZTN Prime.
Welcome back to The Chase, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program, where it is we're beaming to you from our ZTN studios in Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. We are continuing with our election series, and tonight we are investigating whether the media is doing or playing its role as it should. And of course, we've got political parties here represented, and we also have some of the media that are actually represented here. Now, Kolwani, you had the point of response that you wanted to indicate just before we took a break.
I had not finished my point.
You can proceed, but after Kolwani.
All right. Yes. I just wanted to point out that the issue about he mentions that the other side has been retracting stories, which is not true. I've not seen any of the major publications retracting an election story this season.
Right. Your response?
No, there was a video to the effect that the story which was initially published alleging that someone had been given a house. There was a follow-up video. Maybe my colleague missed that. There was a follow-up video which put the story in perspective and actually saying, with the individual saying, no, there was no house which was bought for me.
Yeah, but I can make a video, but that does not mean a publication is retracting a story.
Yeah, but
I'm sure that my brother knows what a retraction means.
No, I'm not sure whether my brother is responding to these videos, because I never mentioned a name. So let's move to the issue of research and giving credible information. I was saying that if our journalists were research-oriented, because the tendency is that during an election cycle, people are much more obsessed with event-based events in covering rallies without interrogating what the candidates are offering. If our journalists or if the media would invest a bit in research, they will find out that most candidates, I'll give an example of Harare Central, for example. There is a candidate who has been in previous years been elected again and again and again on party lines, but there's not been any physical contribution that the guy has done in terms of community development. It's only in this election where you find that they have damned the guy. I'm just giving that as an example.
But there are many.
I'm just giving that as an example. But this is not about just opposition. Even when it comes to the ruling party, we must be able also to interrogate what they have pledged, what they have fulfilled, and what they have completed.
Right. Now, the ruling party is here. How do you respond to some of
the candidates can't construct a sentence in any language?
Well, I think the idea of research and fact-based articles is very, very welcome. As the ruling party, we are very welcome to interrogation and research and being investigated, because we have all the necessary positives on our side from the past 5 years. We do not mind that. We are very open and very welcoming to that. As a matter of fact, we have been very, very worried, especially if you look on social media and electronic news sites. They've been at the forefront of spreading a lot of falsehoods and misguided stories. So for the media to speak of fact-checking and researching, that is a very, very welcome development to us as the ruling party. And we really thank you for that, and we hope it is something which will be universal within all the media.
An election without a manifesto. I mean,
my brother,
who
listen,
does that?
Let me just answer you shortly.
A ruling party,
my brother, we have said our work is the manifesto. You have got a manifesto which wants to build Wanga Unit 7 and 8, which we have done. You've got a manifesto. Have you read the manifesto? It's a travesty. Your manifesto says you want to...
zero. Have you read theirs?
What manifesto? Our work is there. How can you say you've got a manifesto when your manifesto is a celebration of the Second Republic?
Point of order.
What manifesto do you have? You say you want to build...
Let's proceed with the conversation.
We have done that.
Into government.
You say you want to drill balls in the rural areas. We have done that.
Of elections,
there's
never been a party that says we don't know what we're going to do.
They said they've got a manifesto which is 56% plagiarized and which is speaking of building Wanga Unit 7 and 8, which we've already built a commission.
You can't even be corrected.
I mean, whoever wrote your manifesto needs to be psychiatrically checked. I mean, they need some psychiatric analysis.
They have no manifesto. Zero.
Gentlemen,
My brother,
point
what is
of
better?
order.
How can you...
Robson, question is, how much have you invested
written
to
by
ensure
Martians,
that you fact check and you guard against disinformation as well as misinformation?
Firstly, all the preparation for coverage of this election as national broadcaster, we've invested. The most important resource is the human resource. We have people, we have broadcasters who are trained to cover this election. Before, which is happening now, we are going for the 23rd of August. We shall provide live coverage of what will be happening on polling day.
Live coverage
On the
for Triple C, one Triple C rally.
on the after the elections.
No,
the
before.
election day.
Before.
After the election day, I'm responding to the question from the moderator, not from you. After the day of election, we shall deal with the processes of announcement of results. We shall cover that, guided by what the management body will be doing, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, and those processes will be covered as they unfold.
Just one question: is there ever going to be
number two, and most critical,
we're coming to
best practice.
You're coming to the political
we
parties
have
just
a
now.
committee for quality assurance of all flow of information of our election materials. We quality assure to check on the ethical practices of what our political players will be saying. And there is no sacred cow. Every material is subjected through this committee to make sure that what we ultimately broadcast is ethical, it fits into the cultural and norms and values of the society of Zimbabwe. We shall provide coverage.
We are almost running out of time.
We have covered several rallies.
Gentlemen,
not one.
now the question to the political parties. The question to the political parties now is how do political parties, gentlemen, point of order in this conversation.
Our prerogative. Election programming, we are guided by laws.
We are not here to repeat a lecture material. I know these guys have been working for a long time, so they lecture to students. What we just want is to say we have an election going on right now. And in that election, there are presidential candidates that are campaigning. I have one who is the leading presidential candidate. Are they, as ZBC, going to cover just one?
I told you all presidential candidates are going to be given equal airtime.
When is
Your
it?
time is there. We've written to every political party
just
to
one,
ask their presidential
just
candidate.
one to say.
Even Monzora, who has withdrawn, has been given airtime.
We are now running out of time.
They can't answer the question.
Now I will get on to the last words of this conversation. Your parting shots. We'll start with Jacob Mafume.
You must know that.
We are now getting on to our parting shots, and we'll have the parting words from Jacob Mafume representing the Triple C.
Yes, as I represent the Triple C, what we want to assure the watching public is that we are going to be forming the next government. Just as of today, we were opening Rufaro Stadium. We are bringing soccer back to Harare after it had been banished by the misgovernance of our colleagues across me right now. But we have produced a state-of-the-art stadium, state-of-the-art parking space, and also, unfortunately, today we had the police refusing to allow us to proceed.
Thank you, Jacob.
But we are going to give the sporting public a very good stadium.
Two things in short. One, I want to commend political players for a peaceful environment and for allowing us, the media, I speak for the broadcasting, national broadcaster, we've been able to go wherever we want to cover election activities freely and very good environment. I want to commend political parties, including Triple C.
Thank you.
The last
but
one.
Show the videos.
You don't tell me what to do.
The
last one
is
the national broadcaster. The national broadcaster is ready to provide according to the laws of Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Robson. Ranga.
No, thank you so much. Speaking from a journalistic point of view, before we are journalists, we are Zimbabwean. That should guide every media organization or journalist. Before we are journalists, we are Zimbabwean. This election is very important in terms of national branding. So we need to be cautious as journalists in terms of the information that we give to the public, because some of it might have the effect of inflaming the peaceful environment that my brother has mentioned. So we need to be
when
very...
are we going to be on the front page? Is the front page inflammatory? Just one.
We're out of
page.
time. We're out of time.
One front page.
So I
In
think
10 seconds.
Just one.
I think it is
When-
critical as journalists that we understand that during election there is international and local glare on us. So national branding is very important. I've already alluded to my brother.
Thank you, Kolwane.
Front page as well.
Thank you. I think as AMH we have tried our best in this election season to give everyone equal opportunities. Our platforms are accessible to all the political parties. We have covered all the major rallies, both the CCC for the major parties, ZANU-PF. We have covered each and every star rally for the ruling party, and all the star rallies for the opposition. And our platforms, we are trying as much as we can within the limitations. You agree with me that the economic situation is very difficult for media houses to be traveling around the country. It's a very expensive exercise, but we're trying our best.
Thank you, Kolwane. And lastly,
I'd like to commend us all and hope that we continue on this trajectory of peace and togetherness, and also that the biggest endorsement on President Idi Mnangagwa is found in the CCC manifesto, which wishes to do what he has already done.
How is your manifesto?
I would like to thank my guest, Farai Marapira, for ZANU-PF. Gentlemen, we have come to the end of our program. Jacob Mafume for CCC, Robson Mandu, ZBC, Kolwane, Nyati for the AMH, and Ranga Mataire representing Zim Papers. Now, of course, do follow us on our social media handles at Zim Papers TV Network as well as at ZTN Prime. Your thoughts and your views are important to us. Catch us again next week, same time, same place. I'm Ibn Mabunda. Thank you for watching and good night.